In this study, we explored generative reflection through the practice of noticing and making. I'm Heekyoung Jung, presenting on behalf of my co-author, DJ Trischler. We are from the Communication Design program at University of Cincinnati. Building on a previous study that explored various practices to generate insights for self-reflection, in this study we speculated what if and how to apply generative methods from creative practices to design for reflection. We took an autoethnographic approach by self-observing our reflection through noticing and making. Instead of specifying any forms or topics of reflection from the beginning, we let them emerge by creating free-form images to inquire and express personal thoughts for reflection. The study was developed with 3 research questions. First, what kinds of insights might be generated as outcomes of generative reflection? And how to frame generative reflection by visual practice? And how might visual practice make reflection generative? As we engaged in visual reflection exercises individually, we also held weekly meetings to check in each other's practice and discuss creative processes. We created 65 images in total and documented reflection notes, including personal statements that each of us wrote at the beginning and end of the study to compare the intentions and outcomes of our practice. The data was analyzed to develop reflection stages and each author's creative styles and reflection themes. These are the 5 reflection stages that we framed to describe our practice. At the beginning, it was challenging for us to identify what to focus and engage with everything that we noticed. And we experimented by creating reflection prompts for each other to guide how to notice what to focus and how to translate first impressions of inspirations into visual expressions. After making each image, we interpreted their meaning in connection with other previously created ones to continue our practice based on each author's recurring reflection themes and styles. These are selected images created by author 1, referring to myself. You can see some visual relevance between the complex line patterns from the tree leaves and those from the sketches of entangled circuit patterns. These visual patterns were developed into various compositional expressions for author 1 to reflect on her personal and professional growing within and off the grid. These are some images created by author 2, referring to my co-author. He often applied collage by splitting apart words and images to deconstruct and reconstruct their meanings. These expressions revealed his creative style that is tied to his intention to examine different philosophies instead of mindless acceptance of a single portrayal. We both took a lot of random iPhone photos at the beginning, but as the practice continued, we developed our own creative styles and themes of reflection as a kind of generative rules. Here's an example prompt created by author 2 for author 1 to visualize her thinking processes in her native and second languages. We critiqued images based on their visual complexity, compositional integrity, and authentic qualities of narratives. For example, in this visual reflection, the 2 modes of communication are visually contrasted but still integrated with details such as the letter A and the letter S aligned to the line pattern to mark author 1's difficulty with using articles and singular and plural forms in English. This is an image created by author 2 based on a prompt composed by author 1 for him to visualize any changes that he noticed in his garden. Some insights gained from visual reflections often felt enlightening for the creator to view a certain event from different angles and apply them to other situations. Author 2 learned from this visual reflection that there are a lot of opportunities just outside of his focus, as he noticed some plants grew unexpectedly while others died in his garden. Please check our paper for details of our creative processes and visual narratives. As we engaged with a series of exercises, we found some agency in visual practice that mediated our reflection. That is to say, although we didn't have final images or preset images in mind, other actors, such as creative inspirations, triggers for reflection, affordances and constraints of materials and tools, involved in making creative decisions together through visual conversations. And they collaboratively generated affective forces for making and learning. Our practice can be viewed as a performance of agential cuts to produce life forms of entangled matters by cutting them together or apart. These are specific types of agency found by our visual practice. First, to make the invisible visible by taking photos or notes to capture mundane moments and letting the visual traces reveal some insights over time, which are hardly noticeable with bare eyes in an instance. And by breaking apart matters, words, or images into multiple pieces and reassembling them into new visual expressions to reframe their meanings. And to fill in the space with simple compositional rules by repeating, randomizing, aligning to grids, or overlaying multiple visual elements, not to put forward a preset image or message. Lastly, to restyle and remix by changing some visual properties or content of an original image to generate related variations. Although we found agency in our practice, that doesn't mean that such agency is given to generate visual expressions automatically. Instead, we want to highlight the challenges and opportunities in learning and practicing creative skills to discover agential capacities for reflection with other things, which we discussed further in our paper. The findings of our study have implications to track generation instead of consumption, with provocative prompts and alternative forms of agential cuts beyond photos or graphs. The study also showed potential of visual inquiry as a method for noticing and investigating agency in research for reflection. Regarding the 3 research questions, we illustrated that generative reflection could result in the creator's awareness of self-conceptual boundaries and their reconfigurings with others. And we framed non-linear 5 stages of generative reflection, which include noticing and focusing, translating and framing, making with materials, interpreting insights, and connecting and continuing the practice. Lastly, we found 4 types of agency of visual practice in making the invisible visible, deconstructing with visual elements, filling by compositional rules, and restyling and remixing. They can be applied as rules to mediate generative reflection in future work. Thank you for listening to the presentation. Please check our paper for more details and let us know if you have any questions or feedback.